Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Dividock. I'm the supervisor for the Planning, Zoning, and Land Use Unit within the Planning and Local Business Development Division in Oakland County. Welcome to today's virtual planners gathering, barrier-free design for planners. Just a few reminders. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website. And if you have any questions, please use the chat function in Zoom and direct your question to Jim Schaefer. Jim will moderate a question and answer session after the presentation has completed. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Erica Coulston with Walk the Line Recovery Therapy. Justin Willcock, who's a department aide at Oakland County Economic Development, and Ron Campbell, preservation architect with Oakland County Economic Development. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Erica, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to Oakland County Planning Division for hosting this meeting on inclusive planning, creating accessible communities that are inviting for everyone. So the fact that you're all here demonstrates your curiosity and your interest in accessible design for our communities. So that's a great place to start. And I'm happy to be co-presenting with Justin and Ron, sharing our knowledge and hopefully helping you all to be more informed on how you can work towards creating more inclusive and accessible communities. We can go to the next slide. So it's myself, Erica Coulston, president and co-owner of Walk the Line Recovery Therapy. We're a physical therapy and occupational therapy program in Southfield, Michigan. And I'm here with Justin and Ron from Oakland County. Before we get started, sort of on some history of building accommodations, a little bit more about myself. As I said, I'm president and co-owner of Walk the Line in Southfield. We work primarily with individuals with neurological injuries. Prior to owning Walk the Line, I have a background in political science and organizing, political organizing and advocacy. My life was turned upside down 24 years ago. I was spinal cord injured in a car accident here in Michigan. So 23, I became a quadriplegic. I use a power wheelchair to get around. And that, as you can imagine, really changed my perspective, not just on life, but on navigating the world around me. And so that has really informed a lot of my work on advocacy since then. I've worked a lot with in working towards preserving our auto no-fault system at the state level and the county level. And I've also worked with the city of Birmingham to improve their accessibility in terms of downtown navigation and parking access. I'm on the Michigan Statewide Independent Living Council board, and I've also had the pleasure of working on the Oakland County Accessibility Initiative. So I always like to start with just a little bit of history on building accommodations. So in 1973, Section 504 of the Rehab Act was passed. This is a really important period of time in history for people with disabilities and our country. Prior to 1973 and Section 504, which is a federal recognition of people with disabilities and our rights and equality of access, there was no law in place recognizing equality for people with disabilities or the need for access to anything from education, transportation, local communities, healthcare, anything. So this is really the first step towards that access and equality. The woman that you see in the photo, kind of front and center, is Judy Heumann. She's sort of known as the mother of the disability movement. Judy was affected by polio at a very young age and fought throughout her whole life for access, not only for herself, but for the disabled community. Judy went on to become a teacher and work as a teacher. She actually was initially told when she applied for a job that they couldn't hire her because she was a fire hazard. So you can see in a lot of ways how far we've come. But the road to Section 504 was long and very difficult for the advocates that came before us. So Judy was really one of the spearheads of that movement. So Section 504 was passed in 1973. However, it was not enacted until 1977, and this was because there was no recognition or definition of disability documented in the law, and so the law could not be enacted without that. Judy and her thousands of advocacy friends fought for 4 years, pushing the federal government to recognize the definition of disability and to enact 504 so that it could actually become law and start to be put in place. So the basic culmination of this whole movement ended in 1977 with a sit-in in a federal building in San Francisco, where Judy and hundreds of others occupied for 26 days a federal building demanding that Section 504 be funded, defined, and enacted. What resulted was the definition of disability as physical or mental impairment limiting one or more major life act or being recognized as such. With that, Section 504 was enacted. Can you go back for just 1 second, Ryan? Thanks. And so again, this was really the first time that disability rights were recognized and that these issues were seen as society's problems and not and something as civil rights and discrimination. So then again, it's not until 1990 when the ADA is passed, and this really extended the idea of equality and disability rights to the private sector, not just the public sector, not just federal funded sector. Okay, we can move on. So accessibility is really about equal access to live, work, and play for everyone, to have that same ability to move freely in and between spaces, building, and modes of transit, to not have to think about all of the aspects that go into navigating your world ahead of time. And I say this often because, you know, as someone that navigates the world in a power chair with a disability, I'm a master of eyeing all the cracks in the road, looking out for all the curb cuts, spotting an accessible parking spot. These are all the things that we have to think about before we go out, right? And so the idea with accessibility is that those barriers, those things that need extra thought, kind of fall away, right? And we can all sort of move just as easily throughout our communities as anybody else. Accessibility is not about special privileges. It's definitely not only about ramps and curb cuts, as you'll see, and not about accommodations. It really is about creating a level playing field for us all to be able to access our communities. And it benefits everyone. If you think about anything from the older population that might have things like walkers or just difficulty walking or taking steps, families, kids, strollers, just about everyone benefits from universal design. Next slide, Ryan. So there's lots of reasons of why you should care, but here's a few. One is it's the right thing to do. We all benefit from diversity and having access to our communities. 1 in 5 people, or an estimated 64 million people, identify as having at least one disability in the United States. Also, if you think about it, all of us, either if we don't have a disability ourselves, know somebody with a disability. 35% of this population is of working age. So 35% of us are between 16 and 65 and earn income through employment or supplemental support and benefits. The total disposable income for US adults with disabilities is about $490 billion. So this is comparable to other significant market segments, and our discretionary income is about $21 billion. So we have money to spend, and we are loyal customers. And so many times people with disabilities will find the places the communities, the stores, that they're able to move or that we're able to move around and easily. And that's where we'll tend to go. I know that's true for myself. I have sort of the local stores or communities that I know are easy for me to navigate, and I'll revisit those, as will my family. The other thing to keep in mind in terms of community access, there are so many big box stores that are everywhere now taking over, whether it's Target, Costco, um, you name it. And those stores are historically very accessible. They will have wide aisles, they'll have a plethora of parking, they're large, so they're easy to navigate. They'll have different restroom options. So that's something that, from an ease of use perspective, with someone with a disability, is an easy solution. And so, for our communities to encourage that local spending, to encourage local support of our businesses, we really need to have our communities there to support us, to make it easy to get there, to make it easy to park, to make it easy to navigate, to make it easy to shop so that we can spend our money in our local communities, in our small businesses. Next slide. So there are some really easy things that you can do in terms of assessing your accessibility and where to start, what the issues are, and kind of how to prioritize. A small business owner or building owner can fill out an ADA checklist. So this is available at adachecklist.org. And we do have a resource slide at the end available. But these can be completed by a property owner. There's also local consultants available. Disability Network of Eastern Michigan will also help provide an audit. The most important thing with an audit, if you do one yourself or you seek outside assistance with one, is just to know that they are not reprimand in any way, right? This is an opportunity to really have someone, you yourself or someone else, identify the discrepancies and then come up with a plan to prioritize how to fix them. Also, keep in mind persons with disabilities in your community can be really helpful in assessing specific barriers. So audits can identify accessibility barriers such as site conditions. So this would be parking, pathways, signage, building entrances. Are there steps? What are the door widths? What are the side clearances? What is the hardware and the pull force of doors? Also assessing building interior, so corridor width, access to rooms, access to various levels, aisleway width. These are all important things. Turning radiuses. Something to think about even when you are thinking about how you might place interior decor or things of that nature. They should be kept and reviewed and updated as technology evolves. So this is not like a one and done. This is something that should be done at least every 10 years to just make sure that everything is up to date. Next slide. For Title II government entities that are 50 employees or more, a self-evaluation and a transition plan is required. And these should be done in accordance to the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design. If you do work for a Title II government entity that falls into this category, there also should be an ADA coordinator. This is required under the law. And that person oversees the transition plan and the self-evaluation. They also would handle grievances that are filed from the community and coordination of projects. Oftentimes, the person who is designated as the ADA coordinator is wearing several hats. So they might be, they might be holding another position and doing this part-time, or some communities are fortunate enough to be able to have an ADA coordinator designated. Always a good idea to identify the self-evaluation and transition plan and refer back to it as you progress forward. Next slide. Developing and evaluating accessibility options. So solutions are possible once an understanding of the property and the level of accessibility required, as well as the resources are understood. So these things, once you gather all this information, it's much easier to prioritize a solution. Keep in mind too that modifications can be phased in with priorities, and these should be based on primary public space, goods, services, and programs, access to restrooms, and then amenities and secondary spaces. One of the most important and least expensive things that you can do is provide accessibility information about your property on your website. Now, this is something that really is important. As someone with a disability, whenever I'm going someplace new, I will refer to whether it's a museum, a store, a restaurant, to their website and look for information about access points, parking, restrooms, elevators, anything that would be important for me to know ahead of time. This is also a great place to make sure, obviously that your website is up to date with the required digital accessibility, which is something that Justin will go into later on in the presentation. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ron.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, disability really comes under two laws, one objective. The two laws being building codes and the other being civil rights violation. Building codes, of course, this is the Michigan Building Code, Chapter 11, and the Michigan Rehabilitation Code for existing buildings. ADA is really run by is a civil rights violation, Americans with disability, and it applies ADA standards for accessible design. What triggers it, initiated by the Building Code Authority, and that's the building code, but private individuals can initiate a complaint with ADA and the Justice Department. The code applies to new construction and existing buildings undergo reconstruction or additions, with some exceptions to the use of the structure. Examples like private residence do not fall under this. And sometimes the maintenance of a building, existing building, undergoing maintenance is exempt from ADA. Whereas in the ADA and the Civil Rights Division, it applies to all new construction, but it also applies to existing buildings. And again, there are some exceptions with ADA to existing buildings, such as churches, private organizations, and clubs. The waiver and review under building codes, that's going to be the Michigan Barrier-Free Design Board. The local authority cannot waiver ADA. They are the ones that find it in violation when they're reviewing the plans. The owner then would have to go to get a waiver, would have to go to the Michigan Barrier-Free Design Board. Waiver and determination falls into the Department of Justice, and these can be overturned in the courts. Building codes under the Circuit Court and ADA under the Supreme Court. Next slide, please. Now, Erica mentioned about the accessibility and the surveys that could be done. We kind of asked our communities to do their own survey. And on the right, you'll see the results of that. I think there were something like 12,000 questionnaires sent out and a pretty healthy return. And you can see them ranked there. Ramps, 35% said that they lacked them or that was incorrect design. Restrooms facility followed second with 24%. Inaccessible location and building or not equipment. Parking, 13.4%. And signage, lack of or incorrect design. And one we added, but too late to get into the survey, and that was uninformed staff. And it only came to our attention when we found the common violations of ADA. Now, these weren't ranked by a percentage of responses, but just in general form. And you can see how they compare all the way up until uninformed staff. And this is an important one we never thought of, and that was misinformation or just the protocols and procedures that should be followed by welcoming staff. Okay, next. But accessibility, as Erica mentioned, is more than just structures. And I'm going to introduce Justin here to take it from there.
Thank you, sir. Yes, my name is Justin, and just a little about myself here. Um, I have a condition called Usher syndrome, which is a combination of hearing loss and vision loss. Um, I was diagnosed with the hearing loss around age 5 and grew up with the hearing aids. Um, had all these technology in school, all the headphones and things to help me in school. And then around age 21, I was diagnosed with a retinal disease called retinitis pigmentosa. Basically, my cones and rods are slowly deteriorating. And by age 28, I was legally blind. Because I'm lucky enough to have both hearing loss and vision loss, it's categorized as Usher syndrome. Um, so just a little about myself too. Um, I recently achieved my associate's degree from OCC in Business Management Development using technology called screen readers that helped me get through school. I attended school all online, and currently now I'm working on my grant writing certificate. And having it accessible, it was very easy for me to go to school. And anything that wasn't accessible, the schools had an access office that made it easier to fill in those gaps that were left behind. Most common is more digital books and stuff like that that were not compliant. Going to the next slide. Approximately 12 million people over the age of 40 in the U.S. have some sort of vision loss, including blindness. And this number is expected to go up as people age and diabetes and other health issues become more prevalent. Spectrum of blindness, next slide. It's a myth that people assume that when you're blind, you can't see anything at all. When in reality, only about 15% of people have absolutely no vision left at all. The other 85% have a combination of vision loss from light to shadows, shapes, tunnel vision, reverse tunnel vision. These are all different types of vision loss that people have. So me personally, I have the tunnel vision, so I can see the very center of my vision, and that is a little iffy depending on the contrast of light and darkness, something else too. So it just shows that there's a very large spectrum of vision loss. So people might say I'm visually blind, doesn't mean they get blind completely. They still have some vision, they can still see something, they can still see TV and stuff like that. Going to the next slide. So when someone gets to the point of their life where they need additional assistance, they can either go with the cane or the leader dog or service dog. A white cane is a nice device where that helps them detect changes in elevations from steps to cracks to curbs and dark areas that help prevent from bumping into tables and chairs and people. It is something that people go somewhere to get trained, either from Leader Dog or Commission of the Blind or other organizations. Most time it's free. From what I understand, I've never seen anybody charge for this training, but can't say it's not possible. The other method for blind people to use is a service dog or a leader dog. In my case, I have a black lab named Alex that I received from Leader Dog for the Blind in Rochester back in 2017. He goes everywhere with me, downtown to work. I've been to Florida with him. He's been around a lot. I just actually announced his retirement, so he's retiring before winter. The poor guy is 9 years old, and he deserves a good, healthy retirement, and that's what he's going to get. So those are two methods that blind people use to get around when they get to the point where they can't see anymore. There are individuals that are at that point but they can't accept it yet. And those are the ones that people assume, like, just a short story. I was at that point when I didn't have my cane yet, and I thought I was okay to walk around, and people who observed me thought I was drunk because I couldn't see. So when I got the cane, that became the indicator, like, oh, they understood now why I couldn't see. That taking that step from the visual world to blind world is a very hard step for people to take, and anyone who does it should be appraised. Praised. Go on to the next slide. Okay, so going back to the guide dog, if a guide dog is in your facility, as hard as it is to do, it's very important to ignore the dog. The dog is there to do a service, so any distractions can cause the dog to deflect from its job and could put that handler in harm or in a discomfortable position where that person does not want to be. Like I think Eric said earlier, with someone with disability, when they go to a place that's comfortable, they become very loyal there. So if you have a client or customer coming with a service dog and one of your employees is getting all googly eyed with the dog or wanting to pet the dog, we do that over and over again, that dog becomes distracted and it becomes an issue for the handler. So it's very important to not distract the dog. As hard as it is, just pretend the dog is not there and talk to the handler who needs help. Going on to the next slide, it's important, just like what Eric was saying earlier, the aisleways, keeping space clear for moving. Having a service dog is a little different. We can kind of be a little more fluid. We can kind of move around obstacles a little easier, but it's still nice to have a wide open space and be aware of like anything that might be sticking upward and out. Like example, I went to a hardware store a while ago and they had a bunch of snow shovels sticking out of a barrel. Well, it's below my dog's eyesight, but it's at my eyeballs. So it became an obstacle for me that he didn't see. So just be aware of any projectile objects sticking outwards into the aisle. Going on to the next slide. If a person comes in with a cane and the employee wants to offer help, it's important to just ask the person directly if they need assistance. They will tell you yes or no. If they do ask for help, for guidance, two ways to help them. One, give them specific directions. I can't tell you how many times people have said, when I ask them where something's at, they go over there. Well, I'm blind. I don't know where over there is. So being very detailed in directions. You know, turn to your right, go down about 20 feet, turn to the left, and there's the cooler for your drinks or whatever the person's looking for. Or the other option is to offer the help by guiding them. What you would do, you would have the person place their hand on your elbow, and you would guide them through the store to where they want to be. Having them grab your elbow gives the blind person indication of how your body's moving, how you're turning. It's very interesting. If you ever want to try doing it, just close your eyes and take someone's elbow and just have them guide you around. You understand that you are actually reading their body language as they're moving. It's interesting. But that's the two ways you want to help somebody who is visually impaired. My apologies. Go on to the next slide. What is digital accessibility? Is that where I'm at here?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. My computer did something goofy. So what is digital accessibility? It ensures that websites and apps are accessible for everyone, including blind, but also the deaf, um, uh, anyone with ADHD, uh, and that kind of stuff. Why it matters, if you go to the next slide, please. 1 in 4 people have some sort of disability, and a lot of it is invisible. So you know the ones that are blind in a wheelchair, but there are other ones that are ADHD, um, uh, and other competent issues. So it's important to be accessible for everyone, and the technology on the computers help people find things they want to do. For example, if someone dyslexia, closed captions on a live video actually helps them follow the conversation a lot easier. They actually read it, they can see it better. Same with deaf people. Deaf people who are watching the video can read what we are talking about much easier. Going on to the next slide, impact of disability, or okay. Some of the common barriers when it comes to digital websites. So the screen reader, which I'll explain more a little bit, it reads everything on the computer screen, from links to buttons to headers to text to images. Some of the barriers are that these links and buttons and pictures are not labeled correctly. For example, like one time I wanted to buy my wife flowers for Valentine's Day. I got the flowers. It showed me, they had a picture there that says, you know, pink roses in a white vase. I'm like, great, perfect. I clicked on that, and it says subtotal and everything else. When I got the checkout, it wasn't labeled correctly. The edit box just said blank or edit box, so I couldn't enter my credit card number. And then also didn't have a submit order button. So they had most of it labeled, but got to the point where I had to pay for it. I couldn't buy it, so I had to walk away. So it's just another avenue of revenue that's coming in that they missed out on, and that's probably $100 in flour that they passed up on. So it's very important to have everything on the website labeled correctly and the structure laid out cleanly. Another barrier is contrast. So someone who's not using a screen reader, contrast is important because they might be colorblind or they're struggling with light. Having a pink colored text on a red background or white on yellow, those really similar contrasts makes it very hard for most people to read. So it's very important to have a clean, sharp text contrast on your websites. So going to the next slide, what is a screen reader? So a screen reader is a device or a software that is installed in your computer. There are different kinds. There's JAWS, NDBA, and there's Navigator, which is built into Microsoft. And Mac has one too, but I can't remember what it's called. I didn't put it in, I don't think. I am a user of both JAWS and NDBA. JAWS is probably the most common one because they're more advanced. JAWS actually was designed by a motorcycle rider who got in an accident and went blind back in the late 70s. Very interesting story. But JAWS has come a long ways. Now it's to the point where there's like just an annual subscription, and it just updates constantly all year round. So it's always up to date because technology is changing so much. NDBA is a same version, but I believe it's a free nonprofit type, but it's not as advanced as JAWS, but it does very well. So these are some of the screen readers that are available. And to use them, blind people don't use mouse on the keyboard, so everything we do is all key commands. So it's far more than just Control P for print and Control S for save. we can do everything from Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, YouTube, Zoom. Everything we do is all based on the keyboard and key commands, using Control, Shift, all the F keys. It took me probably about a good 2 years of training to really get to where I'm at now, and I'm still not mastering it. It's just a constant learning, just like technology is. You're always learning and you're always advancing, and that's all it is. You're just constantly learning how to do something new all the time. But screen reader have been very helpful in my professional and my education and in my personal life. It's been a great tool to have, and if more people understood this, I think there'd be more job opportunities as well for people who have screen readers. Go down to the next slide. I kind of touched on this a little earlier. Without labels, it's important to label everything. Like I said, finding the right buttons to the right category, the right link to the right categories is very hard to do. Having your heading labeled, like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. For example, we use the H key, and that goes from header to header to header. So if we're looking for a certain topic like property taxes, we hit H until we find property taxes. And we go right there, and as they submit, and that's how it just makes it easier to navigate through websites. So going on to the next slide, approximately a year ago, the DOJ has implemented a new change in the ADA law where all governmental offices have to be ADA compliant. So if you have entities over 50,000 in population, you must comply by April 26, 2027, I think. And if you have under 50,000, my apologies, it might be on the slide better, but my computer is being weird. Anyway, so if you have over 50,000 people, you have until next year, April-ish. If you have under 50,000 people, you have until 27 to be compliant on your governmental websites and apps. Going on to the next slide. So there is a international level of guidelines for website accessibility. It's the WACG. This website is a standard for everyone to use. So if an issue goes to court, they will use this as a guideline. So if you want to make sure that your website is compliant, you can contact this website, and they will show you all the different things you can improve on or where you're at in your website. There's also another website called Wave, WAVE. That's another source you can go to help you evaluate your website to see if you're compliant or not. Going to the next slide. The Wave website I was talking about, that's that slide. That's a great place to go to explore your website. There's also another way on Google. I did not put it in here. If you have a Google search engine or site, you can do a right click. If you want the information, you can email me and I can tell you how to do that. That's a little more complex, but you can actually evaluate the website right from the Google search page. So going to my last slide, the recap slide, it's just important to be aware of the customers and their needs, talk to them directly. Do not pet or distract the dog. double check your website to make sure it's accessible and clean and easy to follow. And if anything is confusing, I'd be happy to answer it in the Q&As, or you can email me later and I can be a little more detailed. Um, there's a lot more I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover more on the deaf community too, but I'm still learning and there's so much to do. I will learn more. But if you have any questions at all on the blind or deaf community, please ask me. I'd be happy to help you. So thank you very much.
I think we can advance to the next slide. We have a few examples here of obstacles in the building area, building arena. When you're planning streetscapes, kind of look over where we can gather maybe accessibility to 2 or 3 different storefronts by slightly raising the walk. And it will take a cooperation with the property owner as well as the municipality. Next slide, please. We'll go through these quick. A lot of the mid-century modern situations in downtowns allow for that angled storefront and deep recess, which in this case allowed for the property owner to install their own accessible ramp and still provide stairs. Next slide. Of course, some of these historic buildings, they have those deep recesses. There's no latch side clearance, and we have to install remote sensors accessible. Next slide, or the rest of this one. Those that easy to open push button. This is an example. No, that's fine. We can go on. This is a example I thought was very cleverly done. As you can see here, the storefront on the very end building, there were 2 steps. There was a step at the building face and one where the yellow line is slightly up to that. Next slide, please. And the solution was working with the municipality, allowed this property owner to make their building accessible. You have a slight ramp. There's only a small pour of new concrete. It gave you 1 level, then a level to the next platform on top of the step, and then finally a small ramp that went into the building itself. Cleverly done, I believe. Next slide. Be careful of little trip hazards like these. You know, they take the time to market. Next slide. And a simple little beveled edge could adjust this. And you can accommodate these changes up to a 1/2 inch with a 1 to 2 slope. Okay.
This slide, some kind of thoughtful solutions to consider when either designing or redesigning some streetscapes or community central areas. So on the right side, you can see there's there's 2 sort of shorter steps. To the left actually is more of it's a little harder to see because it's such a slight slope, but is sloped. So that it makes it easy to access that upper area that has there's chairs, there's, common areas that leads to the other side of the shopping mall as well. So I'm actually not sure why the steps are necessary here, but they're providing a multitude of ways to access this common area. But again, it just makes it really easy. As you can see, it's really a thoughtful design. It's a modern design, easy to navigate. There's nothing that indicates that any way is a special route or anything like that. It's just thought of from the beginning and incorporated right into the design. Can go on to the next one. This shows a streetscape area where there's obviously an intersection. You can see that there's the contrast that's required between the curb cut and the sidewalk. So those are the visual indicators there. as well as the striping and the contrast between the road and the sidewalk. Also, if you notice, this is like a wide access point. So oftentimes, the access point for crossing the street can be sort of narrow. Whereas here, there isn't a lot of thought required or pre-planning required on how you're going to navigate from one side of the street to the other. It's really easy to go across. And if there's a crowd of people, you don't need to fall back and try to figure out how you're going to navigate. So just a really, again, a thoughtful design on how to make things inclusive and easy to navigate. Next. This shows a ramped access around the side of a building. I think what we really like about this, not only is it a thoughtful design and solution, but also, as you can see, they took the time to mural the side of the building. So oftentimes, the accessible route or the accessible access point can be around, you'll find them around the side or the back of a building, maybe next to a dumpster, or you're going in through the kitchen. So the fact that this is like a open, thoughtful, beautifully designed, accessible point, alternative point, really helps to not only draw your attention there, but make it a pleasant access point for people that need to use it. Next.
Couple of these slides. This is in New York, and it was a church. You can see the 2 steps leading into the sanctuary. A ramp to the left, very tastefully done, blends in with the architecture and provides accessibility. Next slide. Sometimes you have to go down, and you can make it work. This happens to be Lapeer County Courthouse. To the left, you can see the rise that it takes to get to the first floor, number of risers. But the basement was occupied with county offices, and there's an elevator on the interior which accesses all 3 floors, the basement, first floor, and the courtroom on the second. And again, access is gained by going down rather than a ramp going up. Okay. During this streetscape project, accessibility was given to, I think it was 6 storefronts along here, which did not have accessibility. And this was incorporated from the initial planning stage with ramps and stairways, making it convenient for everyone. Okay.
So a couple slides. Yeah.
On thoughtful solutions, question mark.
Yeah. A couple slides just to show that sometimes doing the right thing does require a little bit more thought about how the end user is going to be able to put the solutions into work. So here you can see this is accessible parking spot. However, the spot is missing the required blue hash lines next to it for access. Also, you can see that the only way to get onto the sidewalk is actually around to the left of the parking space, and that is a driveway. So, pretty dangerous way to navigate getting to the sidewalk. So you always want to make sure that you are not only providing the safe access to exit the vehicle, but safe access to get to the sidewalk, the road, whatever the point is that the user needs to get to. Next. Again, just like another example, this here, they do have the access point, the blue marks, which is great. There's a sidewalk that's accessible, leading, to the central area. However, if I wanted to access the parking meter, it would be directly in front of my car in a pile of grass. So thinking about access of all aspects that go into accessibility, and making sure that the meters are also accessible. Next.
And I don't know where to begin or end with this one. You can see the handicap ramp access to the left, and there's a utility pole right in the middle of it. But beyond that, there's a legal parking space directly earmarked that blocks any access across the street. So I'll let you leave it at that.
This is some information that's available as part of the accessibility initiative through Oakland County. This information on federal tax incentives for businesses is also available on the IRS website, but you can find it on the Oakland County website as well. And it's really just an effort to make this information more available. A lot of small businesses aren't aware of the available tax credits and deductions that are available through the IRS. And this is designed to really help offset some of the costs of the projects that you might need to consider. If we go to the next slide, this will explain it a little bit more. So there's the tax credit, which is applicable for small businesses with 30 or fewer employees and a total revenue of $1 million or less, which basically this allows you to use the disabled access credit and take a credit of up to $5,000 or half of an expense. These expenses can be related to burial removal, provision of accessibility services, and then modification of equipment. There's also a tax deduction. This is for businesses of all sizes. So no limit on employee number, no limit on revenues. And this will allow for a deduction of up to $15,000 per year for removing those same barriers. What's great about these tax incentives is that they can be used in combination of each other. So you can use them both at the same time. If you have an expense that's maybe $20,000, then you can combine the credit and the deduction. You can also use these every year. So it's a great way to sort of phase in those projects like we talked about. Or maybe you have a larger project that you want to resolve over several years. You can go back and use these annually. Again, you can refer to the Oakland County Accessibility Initiative page, or you can refer to the IRS for more information. And I think the next slide is just our resource slide. So this is, again, a resource slide. I believe this will be available on the website, but you can also snap a screenshot or take a photo. There's a link to ada.gov. So this is through the Department of Justice, great resource center. They do have a phone number that you can call and somebody will answer, an actual person that you can ask questions. Also, the ADA has a national network, and this is a great resource place to go for anything from standards to checklists to information, local resources, national resources. Also locally, our ADA network is the Great Lakes Regional Chapter. Again, a wonderful resource. There is a staff of people to answer your questions. They do answer the phone. I've called and asked numerous questions about different accessibility things that I'm wondering about. And then there's a link to the ADA checklist as well that was referenced in one of the earlier slides. And this is a kind of a step-by-step checklist to go through when you're evaluating your small business or your property. And with that, I think we can answer any questions if there are questions from the audience.
Okay, excellent presentations. Thank you very much. We do have, before I begin with the questions, I did post a link to the accessibility initiative. And as Erica mentioned, we will have this slide up on our website along with the recording so that you can do direct links off of it. First question, Erica, do you have any public space, park or facility websites that you found to be done very well in terms of being able to understand from an accessibility standpoint?
Actually, I will point you right back to the Oakland County website, which does an amazing job of not only being compliant, but providing all the necessary information. In particular, Oakland County Parks and Rec portion of the website is really exemplary. And also Oakland County Parks and Rec does an excellent job of providing program access. So accessibility, as we're talking about it right now, is about, physical or digital access to spaces and places. But accessibility is also about program access. So making sure that people with disabilities can participate in the community programs, projects, things of that nature. So I'll point you right back to the Oakland County Parks and Rec website. They do a phenomenal job.
Okay, great. Ron, is primarily for you, but also for Eric, I think. Can you speak a little bit more to the issue of existing buildings and what triggers the need for barrier-free compliance?
Well, two laws, right? ADA requires all existing buildings to become accessible, and that's to the extent reasonably possible. And that's just a given. Existing buildings should be doing that right now or have already done it. The other one would be the building code, and that is triggered by doing an addition or extensive remodeling. And it depends on the level of remodeling that you're doing, whether it be triggered or not, and what the local inspector will require. There are instances where renovation or maintenance, I should say, is exempt. That is, you could have a toilet room, replace finishes, maybe the partitions, things like that. That does not trigger accessibility. But if you're changing walls and doors and things like that, that's going to trigger it. Erica, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I guess probably one other thing that would trigger it is a complaint or a grievance, which is what you're really trying to avoid, right?
With
In terms
ADA,
of,
yes.
yep. So in terms of ADA, people can file a complaint or a lawsuit for any ADA violations. In terms of public spaces, any government entities, you can file a grievance with that entity. And again, this is what you're trying to avoid, right? You want to be proactive and provide access where and when you can to avoid those costly grievance or complaint / lawsuit situations.
And that's
Okay.
where the audits could come in very handy for you too.
Excellent. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. So Ryan, turn it over to you.
Yeah, so just want to thank Erica, Ron, and Justin for joining us today, providing their experiences, insight, and expertise. I also want to thank all of you for attending. And I just want to give you a reminder, we have another upcoming planners gathering on May 20th for online applications and digital submittals for planning, zoning, and building. So again, thanks for joining today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks.